Welcome to video 2, all about the doshas. When we understand the qualities that we talked about in video 1 and the elements, then we can start getting fun with the doshas. This is probably everyone's favorite conversation. So let's jump right in and talk about the doshas and how those work within us. So there are 3 doshas that we study within Ayurveda. We also hear them called constitution or your body or personality type. The 3 doshas are very real, but they're subtle forces that exist within the body. You can't measure them, but you can observe them and you can monitor them. In this picture, you can see that there's all the doshas represented through the elements. We have the water element and we have earth element. We have the fire, we have air, and we have ether, the space that's holding all of them. This is a good representation of this cycle of life. Doshas work through a cycle. Kapha is the beginning of that cycle. It's the growth and the creation. Pitta is the maintenance and the functioning of the cycle. It's where everything's kind of coming to fruition. And then Vata is the end of that cycle where things start to decay and become destroyed. And it's something we see through the seasons, and we see it within our own bodies. We even see it within a 24-hour clock. The beginning of the day, the sunrise, the heat of the day, and then the end of the day as the sun goes down and starts to transition into nighttime. So let's look at the different actions of the doshas. Kapha dosha deals with creation. It builds the body, creates new tissue, and this is the creation phase of life. This happens with thoughts, it happens with our bodies, it happens with nature. You see it real easily in the seasons when you plant a seed in the spring, which is Kapha time of year, and then it begins to grow. So when we think of Kapha, we want to think of creating and creating structure. Pitta is that middle phase, and Pitta is all about metabolism, digestion, and keeping everything maintained. They want to maintain the structure that has been created by Kapha, kind of hold everything together, metabolize all the food, the experiences, everything that's coming in. And then we look at Vata. Vata is considered the destroyer. They're the ones that kind of break down things through the wear and tear of movement and action. If you didn't have all this motion from Vata, things wouldn't wear out the same. And so all of this motion that Vata creates is that end part of the cycle of life. Now let's look again as a review at the elements that go with each dosha. Vata is air and ether. Pitta dosha, we have fire and water. And then Kapha, we have earth and water. And we talked about the qualities that go with each of those elements, where they fall on the spectrum. If you need a review of that, go back and watch video number 1 again. Now, what is Prakruti? You're going to hear this a lot. Prakruti means original creation. So it's the inherent balance of your doshas at the time that you were conceived. It does not usually change throughout your life. It's a balance of the physiological and the psychological tendencies. So with each dosha, each constitutional makeup, you have your own tendencies that are very unique to you. So when we say constitution, what are we talking about? The constitution is the unique balance of the 3 doshas in your body and mind. It's how those 3 doshas interact, and it creates your body type, what it looks like, your structure, your personality, and your body function. So really your constitution is your individual blueprint for who you are. It's kind of like a thumbprint. No 2 people have the same one. So when we look at constitution, we can understand that there's a uniqueness going on there. Now, what is a tendency? The unique balance of your doshas kind of gives you a roadmap to your tendencies. It helps you to know what you're going to be more likely to be drawn towards, what your body functions are most likely to do, what your structure has a tendency towards. Some have a tendency to be very tall and thin. Someone else might have a tendency to be more short and heavy. Someone else has a tendency to have a lot of muscle structure. So those are the tendencies that we can see manifesting from our constitution. Now, when you know your tendencies, then you can take actions to help keep them balanced. And that's really the game of Ayurveda. It's just a balancing act where we're seeing, I have a natural tendency towards this. Oh, it's increasing right now. So I'm going to bring something out. We're going to balance it out. Here's some examples of tendencies. The thickness of your skin, the length of your fingers, the shape of your palm, your strength of digestion, your personality type, how you handle stress, how pain impacts your body, being introverted or extroverted, being excitable or calm, being intense or kind of laid back, feeling really cold or feeling extra hot, having high energy, or getting tired really easily. All of these are things that you may have a tendency towards. They're not always going to manifest. We can teach ourselves to be more extroverted if we're naturally introverted, but who we are actually doesn't change. You are always going to have that tendency that's matching up with what your doshic balance is. Now, there are infinite types of doshas because each person is unique. We're all a mix of the three doshas, but no two people are exactly the same. The way we look at constitution in Ayurveda is based on percentages. So when we're figuring out your constitution, we look at all the factors that affect your Prakruti, your natural born constitution or dosha, and then there's a percentage given to each dosha. What's interesting though is if someone else has the exact same percentage, they are still not going to be just like you, because the way that the elements work within us is very unique. Air element affects one person differently than another. The same with water and fire and ether and earth. And so when you start to work with constitutions, you might find a friend and say, oh, you are Pitta, I'm Pitta. We must be just the same. You may have the same dosha on paper, but the way it manifests in life is going to be very unique. And the way that you treat different imbalances and treat your body is going to be unique as well. So in Ayurveda, we often give the answer of it depends, because so much depends on your unique individual circumstances. This is definitely not a one-size-fits-all medicine. Now, how do genetics play in? I get this question a lot. So here is the Ayurvedic answer for this. We come with individual karma when we are born, and it can be from past life karma, past experiences. It really is just an individual karma that comes with us, and it creates these subtle samskaras. These are really deep-seated tendencies in our consciousness. They're things that are so deep we're not even aware of them, but they're a tendency towards behaving in a certain way or living in a certain way or showing up in a certain way. Well, the samskaras, they really want to express themselves, and they can only do that through the body and mind. So to be able to express themselves, the child's karma and parents' karma come together. It's almost like there's an attraction there, and it creates the genetic structure of the child. The reason this happens is so that the samskaras can be expressed, and you are given scenarios in your life based upon your tendencies that have come through your dosha to be able to work out your karma. When people will tell you, well, all these challenges that you have, you asked for them. Like you needed these in order to grow. From an Ayurvedic standpoint, that's actually a true statement, because we are working out our karma through the actions that we take. And we do that by facing challenges that force us to maybe shift or change or become different in order to work out that karma. So there's no accidents. Anything that happens in your life, you are perfectly designed to handle it based upon your dharmic purpose. So you're trying to find your dharmic purpose based on the challenges that you're given, and you're designed perfectly to do so. Makes things that we face that are hard maybe a little bit easier to understand why we're going through them. Let's look at each dosha individually. So Vata dosha is defined as that which moves. The elements are air and ether, and the action is movement. The home of Vata is the large intestine, but it also resides in the pelvic cavity, the bones, the skin, ears, thighs, and the nervous system. The physical symptom we see most often with Vata is pain. The qualities that we talked about in the last video are cold, dry, light, subtle, flowing, mobile, sharp, hard, rough, and clear. Here's a great example of a few Vata dosha celebrities that you might be familiar with. You can see the long, narrow face structure. You can see the smaller eyes, the long nose, also the long hands, which you can't tell on some of them, but they've got nice, big, long, rectangular shaped palms. So you can see that there's some tendencies with Vata dosha that show up, and you can see them right here in photos. Pitta dosha is defined as that which digests. The elements are fire and water. The main actions for Pitta are digestion and metabolism, and its home is the lower stomach and the small intestines, the blood, the eyes, the skin, sweat glands, your liver, and your spleen. So interesting, because people talk a lot about how the liver holds anger, and anger is an emotion that comes with fire. So the liver is a Pitta element or a Pitta organ. So it's kind of fun how that ties together. The physical symptoms are fever and heat. The qualities we'll see are hot, moist, light, We talked about that with the light and the heavy, but there's enough fire to keep it more on the light side. Subtle, flowing because of that water element. Mobile when the air moves it. So it's static if the air leaves it alone. Mobile when the air comes in. Sharp, hard when the fire is high. Rough because of the fire. And clear. Here's some great examples of Pitta Dosha. You can see that sharpness, the angularity, the clear-cut jawline, the deep-set piercing eyes, the medium-sized lips. There's so much going on in those pictures that you can definitely see that Pitta Dosha. Kapha Dosha is that which holds things together. The elements are earth and water. It's all about lubricating, structure, growth, stability, and immunity. The location and the home is the stomach, and the chest, the mouth, the throat, the head, your plasma, the liquids of your body, and all the synovial membranes in your joints are other locations we find kapha. Physical symptom we see is swelling. That makes sense because there's so much water element. And the qualities are cold, moist, heavy, gross, dense, static, dull, soft, smooth, and cloudy. Here's some good examples of kapha dosha. You can see some of that roundness there in Oprah's face, the lovely large eyes, the round eyes, the full lips, just that softness through the nose as well. Doshas really manifest our unique tendencies. It's a beautiful way for us to see our tendencies through the physical structure of a dosha. You can see in that Vata picture, that long, lanky, you can feel that air and ether, that lightness. Pitta's got a little more solidity there. There's more muscle structure. It's more solid, the fire and water element. And then kapha, there's a little more roundness there. Even within the eyes, you can see there's a little more softness and round features. That's our water and earth elements. So it creates a beautiful balance. We are all three doshas. And so when we see that all of that is part of us, that you can be watery and soft, and you can be strong and fiery, and you can be very light and airy, all of that is a part of every single person, just in different amounts. So as we understand more fully how the doshas affect us, when we realize that we are a mix of all three doshas, it allows us to really embrace who we are. So as we begin to study this more, be very open to be learning more about yourself. Don't come into this expecting to already know everything, because when we start a self-awareness journey, which is what Ayurveda invites us to do, we're able to really discover some of the nuances about who we are and our personality. And when we are allowing ourselves to maybe be wrong about who we've been and to discover something new, it's so exciting. It allows us to really step into this new space. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Go on and watch video number 3, and I'll see you inside the Scholars Program.